Hi there, I'm Tricia Morris at Club Scrap with the September 2021 Farmstand collection. And I'm going to go ahead and set aside the beautiful ribbons we've included in this kit, the burlap bags, the fun bronze charm embellishments, as well as this awesome stencil. I have it back with some green so you can kind of see better what it looks like, but isn't that going to be fun to work with this month? Let's begin, as we usually do, by taking the pre-cut photo mats we've included in your kit, and I am going to file them in my clever accordion pocket file. If you don't yet have one of these, this is something you really need to make. I have a video and a starter kit to help you create your accordion pocket file so you can stay organized along with me while we prepare to make all 8 of the Farmstand pages. So for these photo mats, this is our practice filing session. This is a test. Okay, let's see if you can pass that along with me here. We're going to take one orange photo mat and then one of the light green mats. So there's the light green and the dark green is almost like a pine tree green. Take both of these and file them in the pocket labeled 1 and 2. And then for the next ones, we're going to take 3 of the ivory photo mats. So 1, 2, 3, put those in pocket 3 and 4. Now we'll find 2 dark green mats and then the remaining 2 orange mats, and we're going to file those in pocket 5 and 6. And then we'll take the rest. So that's 2 light green, 1 dark green. Those both go in 7 and 8. So as is our custom, the next thing we're going to do is organize all of the papers that we've provided in this kit in the order that they will be trimmed. So we'll start out by finding the border print. And in my case, that was the second one in the pile. I'm not sure what that is for you. Just take one of these border prints. I'm going to place that face down on my trimmer base. The rest of the papers I'm holding up so I can see them from the top, and they're much easier to see and identify. Then take one of these frame prints, put it face down on your trimmer. And by the way, hope you do have this particular model of a trimmer to use because it just works like a charm. Then reach for one red plane. So that's this guy. And most of our papers are going to be solid core color. So that's the same on both sides. And then we have one orange plane. Again, same on both sides, so don't worry about it. Then a cut apart. Let's see, I want you to take this one, the one that has the large orange tag in the upper left corner. And then the other one that has the red and the green strips on the right. Now let's continue with the frame print, face down. Everything with the print should be face down. And then the red plane. How about a border print? This gets much easier the fewer sheets we have. And then an orange plane. 2 light green planes. And then 2 dark green. Now the dark green has this beautiful burlap texture on it, so place that face down on your work surface. Now you'll still have one more sheet of die cuts available, and let's just go ahead and deal with those right now, shall we? So we can take these carefully out of the parent sheet, as we would call it. So the parent sheet is 12 by 12. And to allow these die cuts to remain in the on the parent sheet, they take an actual steel rule die and put small nicks in it so that nothing falls out. And so if you wanted to just cut those off or just scrape them away with your fingertip, either way, those will exist, and you can eliminate them as you wish, if you wish. So this tag that came out of the lower left corner here, that goes in pocket 5 and 6. And then we'll take out the truck tag. And he also goes in 5 and 6. And then the fresh. Take that out. We'll file this in pocket 3 and 4. Life is a garden. Dig it. This one is going to go in pocket 7 and 8. Then this top center one here goes in 3 and 4. And then this final one here in the corner, top right corner, that goes in 7 and 8. So each of these tags has a mate. Now we have these little guys. This little red little reinforcing dot goes in 3 and 4. And then the remaining 2 green ones, both are going to be put into pocket 7 and 8. And if you want to find more locations for the red and the orange remaining, that's fine, but those are the only 2 that I used. there. I didn't use the one on this end either. So these three are still available to you. Otherwise, you can dispose of the parent sheet. With that done, all that preliminary filing work completed, we can now take our papers and trim them. We're going to trim 4 papers plus 2 cut aparts together. And in this case, it doesn't really matter which way you put this into the trimmer as long as these border strips are running vertically. So there's a little more space between the edge of the print here as here, but it doesn't matter because each of these will be trimmed into the same sized piece. So first I want you to find 8 3/4, and to do that I usually just find the whole number on my trimmer base, making sure I'm looking at inches and not centimeters up here. So these are inches. And then for every quarter, you have to go to the left 1 column. So 8, 8 1/4, 8 1/2, 8 3/4. And there I am. All right, now I want you to move down to 3 1/4. So there's 3 and 1 column to the left. Before you slice, I want you to always stabilize on this clear bar, and that keeps the paper from being pulled to the side by the blade. And if that happens, then you would get a crooked cut. Now go ahead and collect both of the printed border strip areas and put that in pocket 1 and 2. And because the paper is 12 inches wide and so is my accordion pocket file, I just file it at an angle like this, kind of sticking out to the right. Okay, now I have this plain area. We're going to trim that one horizontally at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, and 3 3/4. And that created 3 pieces that are the same size, and they'll all go into pocket 1 and 2. And if you're new to following along with my instructions, you can see that there are numbers on every single element on the instructions, and that tells you what pocket it's to be filed in. And then this little guy is a scrap. I know. Next, I'm going to place this frame print into the trimmer with the tomatoes in the upper right corner. And again, referencing the diagram, I usually put a picture of the print so you can see the orientation as well as read about it. Okay, so this goes into the trimmer, tomatoes in the upper right. We'll trim at 7 3/4. So again, that's back 7 3/4. 1, 2, 3. And 5. So this piece with the beets goes in pocket 3 and 4. And then this next strip, I'm going to trim horizontally. And you can put this guy on your right. We'll cut it 9 1/4, 8 1/4. This is weird. 5 1/2, and 2 3/4. Okay, so this piece with the carrots 1 and 2. The next 2 pieces go in pocket 3 and 4. And the final piece with the onion, or garlic, I think that's garlic, pretty sure, 1 and 2. Okay, so then this other wide piece, pocket 3 and 4. And this is a scrap. Not too bad. Next, let's go to the red plane we've set aside. So as you can see, by pre-sorting our papers, it makes things easier to stay organized, stay on track, and know you have the right sheet being trimmed at the right time. And as a note too, if I'm going too fast for my beginners, of course, go to your YouTube settings. You can adjust the playback speed to 0.75 or even 0.5 to really slow me down. Okay, so the next trim is at 11 3/4, 11 1/2. That makes 2 tiny pieces. And then 8 1/2 and 4 1/4. Rotate, and we'll trim this 4 1/4 by 12 at 10 3/4 and 5 1/2. Okay, so this piece that still is in your trimmer base, that's 5 1/2, that goes in pocket 3 and 4. And then the next piece goes in pocket 5 and 6. And we did create, oh, this is not a scrap, it's used in layout 5 and 6. And then, I love it when that happens. The next piece we're going to trim at 11 1/4. So this was the one laying next to our trimmer blade here. It's 4 1/4 by 12 right now. All right, so we're going to cut this at 11 1/4, 8 1/2, 4 1/4. Take the 2 squares you just made and put those in pockets 7 and 8. Then there's one more rectangle, also 7 and 8. This narrow strip, 3 and 4. Next, take the 3x12 and we're going to cut this on numbers divisible by 3. So that's going to be 9, 6, and 3. And we just made a set of 4 squares the same size. 2 of them will be filed in pocket 3 and 4, and the other 2, 1 and 2. Then we have 2 narrow strips that they both go in pocket 5 and 6, and there were no scraps involved in the red plain, which is cool. All right, now the orange, we will again trim here at 11 3/4, 11 1/2, 10 1/4, 9, and 5 1/4. Rotate the 5 1/4 inch piece. Now I just have to point out, if you're new, again, the temptation might be for you to be sliding paper out of the way from the trimmer, but as we're doing this sort of trimming process, it's definitely a process. We need everything to pile up and not be moved. That way I know it is where it is, and you know it's right where I think it is. And that really helps us along with the instructions. So we'll trim this strip here at 10 1/2, 7, and 3 1/2. And every trim that we make has a purpose. All 3 of the rectangles we just made should be the same size, going into 1 and 2. And this is a scrap. Next, we'll take this long piece. This is 3 3/4 by 12. We'll cut at 11 3/4, 7 1/2, 3 3/4. Okay, so this square, put it in pocket 1 and 2. The next square, 5 and 6. The next rectangle, 3 and 4. And we do have a small scrap. Now we have these narrow strips that remain. The 2 wide ones will go in pocket 7 and 8, and the 2 narrow ones in 3 and 4. Okay, now we've arrived at the cut-aparts. Okay, so the cut-aparts are awesome for helping us finish our pages with titles and things like that. And on the corner of each cut-apart, you're going to find a little crisscross. And those are actually cutting guides to help you remove a perfect edge around this to turn this into a 12 by 12 sheet. So on that first cut, just do your best to line up that little hash mark with the edge of your blade. You won't really even be able to see it at the bottom. So if you need to go back later and perfect that cut, you certainly can. Then rotate. Now I'm looking right in the top corner here, aligning that little hash mark. And I'm looking also at the bottom corner, which you can't really see on the screen, but way down over here. And I'm looking at that spot too, and I can see the edge of the blade. I can see that line, and now I'm going to slice it off. And then you rotate and do it again. At this point, you could probably look to the edge and make sure it says 12, but I might go and straighten up my previous cut there. One more rotation. I can cut at 12. And then I might just give one tiny little shave, which I love with this trimmer. You can really, I mean, look at that little hair. I literally removed a hair. It curls on its own and everything from that 12 by 12. Okay, so if I now have this in the trimmer so that these 2 narrow strips are on the right, I definitely need you to let these pieces pile up, and we'll file them together in order. So we're going to trim at 11, 10, 7 1/2, and 4. Something kind of strange happened on this, so just bear with me here. Our first cut, if you put keeping it rural on the right, is going to be at 11. Now this next one just kind of landed in a weird spot. I need you to cut this at 10 1/8. Okay, so find 10. Then here's 10 1/4. So the hash mark that's halfway between is 10 1/8. Otherwise, just look over here and try to line it up so you cut in between the area. Then we get to cut at 8 1/2. That's a nice easy one. And then 6. Now this is a future tag, and you can definitely use a grid ruler and a craft knife and a cutting mat to cut off these corners. Another option is, if you feel real comfortable with your trimmer, what I do is I try to eyeball it so that I have an equal margin on the angle here. And then when I bring my blade down, I can kind of see where it's going to cut, and then I just slice it. So line it up nice. Check your distance here and your angle. Give it a trim. That looks quite good. Okay, so that's easy. An easy way to make a tag shape out of a cut apart and put that in pocket 1 and 2. Let's see, we've got this red quote in 7 and 8. The tomatoes, it's a tag, so I'm going to quick just chop off my corners. I'm not sure if you've done it this way in the past. I usually use a craft knife, but I'm getting pretty good at doing it this way. It saves a little time. This goes in pocket 3 and 4. Living life on the veg, 3 and 4, and keeping it rural. Love that. That goes in pocket 5 and 6. Okay, now the next strip, this has the green on it. We're going to put it in the trimmer so the peas are on the right. And we'll cut at 9 1/2, 7, and 4 1/2. Farm to the table and table to the soul, that's 7 and 8. The carrot journaling prompt, 1 and 2. The avocado journaling prompt and the 2 peas in a pod, they both go in 7 and 8. Now all we have left to file are some strips, and we got some triangular scraps to set aside. We've got this Fresh Memories, 5 and 6. And then these 2 strips go in the same layout, 7 and 8. And now I'll take the next cut apart, and I'm going to do the same exact thing I did before by removing the little edges on each side according to those cutting guides. Okay, so place this back into the trimmer so the green stripe is on the right, and we're going to cut this one at 11 1/4. And then 10 1/2. 8 3/4, 5 1/2, and 3 1/2. Rotate. Trim at 7 and 3 1/2. Okay, so never squash a good time. That's in 1 and 2. Totally rad, 5 and 6. And then this gather with an image option is 5 and 6. This is a border strip here going into pocket 3 and 4. And the next piece we'll trim. These are some of the last cuts we'll make. Now that's at 9 3/4, 7 3/4, and 4 1/2. All right, so this Farmer's Market and then the locally grown, they both go in pocket 1 and 2. Farmer's Market in the oval shape, 1 and 2 also, and then Okie Dokie, well, the whole thing went into 1 and 2. Okie Dokie Artichoke. Okay, now we've got this strip going into pocket 3 and 4, and then the red border, 7 and 8, and the green border, 1 and 2. Okay, that is it for the trimming of all 8 pages. So I hope if you're new here, you see the beautiful efficiency of all of that. I'm going to go ahead and set my trimmer aside. You can also, if you'd like, you can set these aside or just dispose of the 4 tiny little scraps we made during the trimming process. Now take the remaining papers that we've sorted and place the entire stack of them left of the center of your workspace and slide the top paper over. And what we just did here was created the base pages for layouts 7 and 8. So in your instructions, turn to page 4, and the bottom image should show you a red plane as the base. We're just recreating this right here like a puzzle, and then the oval print on the right. Now if you want to rotate it so the beats are up here in the left corner, that would duplicate what I did, but it's your own darn page, right? Okay, so next I need to go to my accordion pocket file. And if you didn't have one of these, hopefully you just maintained 4 piles. And I'm gonna pull everything out, including those 2 tiny little dots. And I'm gonna hold, as to the best of my ability, I'm gonna hold this stuff in the palm of my hand. It sort of makes seeing it and sorting it a little bit easier. Now across the top of the red layout and the bottom, I'm going to place these 2 orange strips, and they should nest perfectly with this title strip, Relish the Past, Harvest the Present. See, now what I love about this, Relish the Past, harvest the present, preserve the future. It turns this sort of farm standy or vegetable feeling page into something you can use for literally any occasion, which I love. It could even be a birthday, it could be a wedding, outdoor wedding, trip to a winery, whatever. Okay, so then I've got the farm to the table and the table to the soul, plus the avocado journaling prompt. Those are going to dictate the distance between these two strips. So I want them sort of hugging this with equal borders kind of going all the way around. 2 peas in a pod go down here in the lower portion. And then I've got 2 light green mats that are going to angle and overlap slightly. So those are just going to go into this space. You'll notice how the corner of this mat is going to overlay. See, this one's kind of straight. This one's kind of tilted, and this tuck right in there. Cool. I did run some ribbon across this and tied a bow onto it, which you'll see in my completed page, which I'll show you in a second. And then on the right side, we've got these 2 squares. 1 square, a rectangle, and then a square is going to work its way along the right edge. And I apologize for covering up that beautiful print, but you have to do it, right? And then here is the strip sort of creating some space. The gardening quote fits right in there perfectly. And then this dark green mat is horizontal. This can nest nicely onto this, and you can like remove the little holes at the top of the tag, nest them together, add some ribbon, and then just cinch the burlap bag, and then that's going to go right over here. Now let me show you some finishing touches. On the page that I just assembled for you, you can see how everything fits so beautifully. The cinched bag, I just used my regular ATG adhesive to attach it. Here, I looped the ribbon through the tag, just a short length of it, and taped it on the back. And then I tied a basic bow and just put it on top. So I didn't go through the complexity of trying to figure out how to loop this and tie a bow. It's 2 separate pieces attached to that tag. A really helpful tip for you. And if you haven't seen my video yet on ribbon basics, check it out. I'll put the link in the screen here. And then here we have layout 7. Simple. You can see I stretched the ribbon across, taped it at the back, and then once the ribbon was stretched, I just tied this onto it. So again, it's piece number 1 and piece number 2. Super easy. And then in the upper left and right sides of this title strip, I added the little circular piece that we set aside. So that's going to go here and here. And if you happen to have a gold brad in your stash, most people do, just use the brad to attach it. It's just kind of a cute way of using the remnant, and looks really nice. But we didn't include the brads in the kit. I didn't foresee using them like I ended up using them. Okay, so that is pages 7 and 8. I'm not going to glue them down with you. We don't want to waste our precious time adhering things. You know how to adhere things. And then I'm going to just take this, only the red sheet, and slide it. I'm just going to get rid of this so it doesn't bulk things up here. I'm going to slide that over on top of layout 8 without adhering anything. And you can do that too at home. Then slide this on over, and we are ready to assemble pages 5 and 6. So that's the idea behind that sorting that we did earlier, is we're going to work backwards. And then when we're done with all of this placing and just organizing, then it's easy and quick to adhere everything down. But this way, you know, if something got misfiled, you can correct everything. So this Fresh Memories is going to go across the center of the page, and we're going to create some separation. It's almost like this is matted, but it's not. It's like an illusion. It's like it's matted with red. I usually use my needle-tipped applicator filled with bookbinding glue. So after I attach this and I know it's centered and level, then I'm going to run the glue along the top edge of this border strip and put the red next to it. So the glue goes on the paper, not on the strip, if that makes sense, I hope. Then a horizontal green across the top. Another one across the bottom, and it's just going to fit. So you really do need to make sure that this is centered, and you have to plan for it, because if you don't, you won't have room. Now this is designed to fit perfectly right into this space here. Lots of effort goes into calculating all of this stuff so it works. Now we've got 2 orange, and those are going to go vertically and tilted again. And then we'll nest this tag onto this die cut here, and that kind of gets tucked in that spot. The Totally Rad has a mat, an orange mat, and that's going to tuck in nicely there. Keeping It Rural nests beautifully with this red mat, and that's going to go right into this space with foam adhesive to kind of pop it up a little bit. Let me show you the finished pages. Here's layout number 5. I did add, so I just stretched it across and taped piece number 1 to this, and I did attach the bow to it. So again, I covered that in my Ribbon Basics video. I kept demonstrating this over and over again in my monthly videos. It was taking so much time, so I just did a ribbon video that you'll learn a lot of tips if you watch that. Here I just wrapped the ribbon through the tag and spread it around to the back. Nice and easy assembly there. On this page, again, very simple, very basic. The only little touch here is I rounded the left corners of this. I thought it added a little. And then I pop-dotted this with foam adhesive circles that we carry here at Club Scrap. Okay, so then I'm going to do the slide here of just the orange, stack it on top of the previous, and then take one more piece of green, slide it over, and that gives me the base for layouts 3 and 4. So if you want to empty that pocket, make sure you get everything, even the little red circle. And then you'll turn to the previous page of your instructions where you'll find 3 and 4 here. I just love how being organized can really free us up to be creative. So I've done all the math for you, and now you can just create. Well, it looks like I trimmed this the opposite of what I did. It's okay. This goes, the artichoke will be left and the tomato will be right. Looks good. And then I'm going to separate, create some contrast just with this orange, just very simple, that narrow strip. And again, I would adhere this first, then run my glue along the edge of it. And then this acts as like a guide for my nozzle of the needle tip applicator. And then this gets attached. Because adhering these little narrow pieces can be kind of a pain. So that's just a quick way to get that done. And then we've got Let Our Lives Be Full of Both Thanks and Giving. And then I, again, used this little red piece along with a brad right in that spot. The fresh tag nests onto the corresponding companion. And that gets added right about here, kind of at an angle. Makes it pretty cute. Added some red ribbon to that also. Now vertically you'll have room for a ivory mat, and then the other 2 ivories will be placed side by side there. Now in this area I've got a red separating that, and then if you cut the Living Life on the Veg out, it will mat perfectly onto this. The orange mat will go here, and I do a little stenciling of the truck down in the lower left here, and then this goes across the bottom. The vertical red, 2 red squares, get 2 mats, and the journaling prompt with the tomatoes goes up here. So those are the pieces that came out of the pocket. The stenciling and all the finishing touches I'll show you on the finished layouts. So here I just took, you can see how this one, I just pop-dotted this onto the red, used our bookbinding glue from the needle tip applicator again to attach the charms. So the glue works beautifully on metal to paper applications, as well as many others. Stapled a piece of folded ribbon to the right edge of the tag, didn't even bother to punch a hole or anything, it's just stapled on there. One little more advanced finishing touch is that I placed this, you know, on the page, and then I cut around the areas where I wanted those pieces to live behind the page. Now, because I flip-flopped my trimming, you're going to find that you have different vegetables you can put into the foreground if you want to. But at this point, don't worry about it. It's just like a little touch that I like to do once in a while when I want to bring something into the foreground. Okay, then layout number 3 already. You can see the brad attaching that little finishing touch there. Now here I took the stencil and just placed it right onto the page, and I used a adhesive, or this is a ink applicator brush with our red ink, and just stenciled it in. And then once that was done, I calculated where the bottom, I just made a little mark where the bottom of the mat reached this area and this spot here, and then I took a craft knife and cut along the truck so I could slide the mat behind it. And you can see that peeking through on the back of the page. So again, just place the mat where you want it to live once the stenciling has occurred, mark where the edge of the mat meets the image, and cut with a craft knife if you feel comfortable using a craft knife. If you don't, I just recommend eliminating that step. Okay, now we can take layout 3, slide it over onto layout 2, and then slide one more time for the base of layout 1 and 2 to appear. We'll empty the pocket. Perfect. Got it all in one scoop. Okay, so I'm going to take the piece. Looks like I've got the cucumber and the tomato looking out here. So the wider area of burlap is at the top. And then I've got a green strip at the bottom. And then this one, the wider area of burlap will be on the right, and this is going to be vertical. Okay, we've got a lot of elements here. I can take the orange mat and put it horizontally, it's kind of center-ish, and this one can go vertically to line the bottom edges, and this cut apart tag can nest right on top of that one. Then I already have the Okie Dokie Artichoke. This fits so nice right into this spot here, so puzzle that in there. 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of the puzzle, just lining up so nicely. And we should have 2 red squares in our hands here. So I'm going to put those up here, and look at that fit. And they have nice veggies on them, so you can arrange those however you wish. So this would be a spot where you'd want to put a picture. Doesn't really matter what's happening underneath it. If you, don't want all that veggie showing, you can just flip it over to the plain side, however you want to do it. Remember, it's your own darn page. This is just how I would do it if it was my page. And it is, so I did it my way. So 3 vertical mats here from the print, actually, from the center section of the very print that we're using. And they're going to nest, so they pop really nice with this orange on top. This adds some nice contrast with that dark green paper behind it. This guy gets married up with the Never Squash a Good Time. And I ended up putting a corn charm, like right here. So cute. I cut this into an oval, cinched the burlap bag and attached it to the bag, and attached the bag to that. This I cut, just fussy cut with scissors, not a big deal, into an oval shape and tucked it behind here. This was trimmed into a circle and placed right up here. Finishing touches on layout 2, it's pretty easy. You're just gluing everything down. Once this gets trimmed into a circle, this is probably the last thing you'll attach to the page. I did add the tag with foam adhesive circles after punching a hole and threading the orange grosgrain through the hole and wrapping it around to the back. I usually talk about the reason I do this is because if you put a knot and the tag, it can add a little bulky dimension to it. And if you want to keep it nice and flat, it's just a good way of doing that. And then on layout 1, I love how this turned out. So I added the corn and the right edge and farm fresh just above the photo mat. So you want to do this after everything is attached. I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but at the very least, I mean, the only way you're going to know where this goes is if these are in place. So that's how I did it. And I basically just took the stencil, the Farm Fresh, and placed it right in position. And what you want to do is either firmly hold it with your hand or tape it with some painter's tape. But you really got to be careful here, even stenciling tape, so you don't wreck any of the artwork or paper. Avoid getting any ink into the holes around it, and then just grab your ink. I'm using the white pigment is what I use with this. It looks so good. And just stencil into the words, and then bring your corn in there if you want to, like put some paper to protect things where you don't want it, but I just placed it in and just stenciled it in. Same way, just tap this with the ink applicator and then just work your way through it in small circular motion to transfer the ink into the stencil. Reload the ink as much as you want. And I did a pretty dark application with this, but I love how that turned out. Here's my little corn cob attached with my awesome bookbinding glue. So if you don't have our Club Scrap bookbinding glue, be sure to pick some of that up. Now, if you liked this farm stand collection, I just wanted to let you know that we do make cards as well. Making the cards the Club Scrap way with our kits does not require that you are a stamper. However, you can be a stamper and just flip the cutter parts over to the plain side and create your own artwork, which is kind of a cool, versatile option for you. And we've got a split tent card here is one of our choices. We make 4 of those from the kit. And then we also have some fun slimline cards with some really cute quotes. We have 2 horizontal, always routine for you. And then we have 2 vertical. So let us celebrate. And then this is an old-fashioned way of texting. I love these slimline cards. And then finally, I have this cute little standing box style. I have 2 vertical and then 2 horizontal cards. All of the card kits that we carry come with envelopes. So I'm not sure if you've been to Hallmark lately. I just celebrated a birthday and I looked at the price of some of those Hallmark cards people sent. And I'm telling you, $21.95 member price on a 12-pack of cards with envelopes. You just can't beat it. And they look very professional. I'll do another video with you and walk you through the process of finishing these cards from scratch, from the 12x12 paper into this. It's going to be a good time. So I'll see you over at the Farmstand Card Kit class. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.